They never covered this in school. Not because it wasn't valuable, but because once you grasp it, your perception shifts so profoundly, you stop seeing the world the way they want you to. This isn't about eyesight, it's about insight. And what I'm about to walk you through is often hidden for a reason. Silence isn't simply the lack of sound, it's the presence of something deeper. It's the still ground where truth quietly rises. It's the environment where the invisible finally makes itself known. Yet most people escape it. They avoid silence like discomfort, masking it with scrolling notifications and endless noise. But here's the paradox. If you're unable to be with silence, you'll forever miss the sound of your inner guidance. You'll chase loud opinions and trends while ignoring your own deeper knowing. This is the trap of modern life, mistaking movement for growth, volume for value, busyness for purpose. But clarity, real clarity, is born in the pause, not in the push. Think about when your greatest moments of understanding arrive. They don't come in meetings, conversations, or hustle. They emerge in the quiet during a late-night drive, while standing in the shower, or in the soft haze between sleeping and waking. That's not an accident. That's how inner truth works. Silence is the voice of your spirit, and your spirit doesn't yell. It whispers. Every ancient teacher, sage, or visionary knew this. Before they changed anything outside, they first withdrew within. Not to run away, but to look clearly. To access what lies beyond the obvious, you must first remove yourself from what keeps distorting your vision. This practice is rarely mentioned, not because it's complicated, but because it can't be commercialized. It can't be packaged. It doesn't shout. It reveals. Your true vision isn't something you stumble across. It's not gifted by chance. It's there but buried under layers of thought debris. Every complaint you voice, every endless scroll, every unexamined opinion, every unnecessary argument, they all add fog to your internal mirror. Silence is the cleansing agent. It's the detox of the mind. The reset most people fear. Because when the noise falls away, you're left alone with what's real. And that can be terrifying until you see that what remains is your greatest source of clarity. But don't mistake silence for emptiness. It's brimming with direction, with messages, with the next step forward. Most people never hear these messages because they're tuned into chaos, not calm. Society teaches us to listen louder, but inner sight requires us to listen deeper. Try this for 1 hour. No phone, no background sound, no conversation. Just you and the quiet. Let your thoughts run wild. Let discomfort bubble up. And then, wait. Because after the surface chatter dies down, something else emerges, a voice, without fear, without panic. A voice of truth. Your inner vision won't shout for your attention. It waits. And when you're ready, it speaks. Readiness, however, doesn't come in motion. It comes in stillness. Remember this. You can't discover what's beyond the visible while you're constantly bombarded by what's obvious. To awaken the eye within, you have to turn down the volume of the world. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a doorway. And if you're brave enough to walk through it, what you meet on the other side is you, pure, unmasked, undeniable. Your eyes don't function like passive cameras. They're projectors. What you perceive outwardly begins with what you believe inwardly, before your conscious mind captures even a sliver of what's out there. Your subconscious has already decided what to look for. That's why two people can experience the same event and walk away with opposite stories, because perception isn't neutral. It's curated by belief. You don't see things as they are. You see things as you are. Each belief becomes a tinted lens, changing how you view everything. If you believe the world is harsh, you'll find cruelty even in kindness. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll reject love even when it's offered. If you believe opportunity is scarce, you'll walk past doors wide open. The truth is, your thoughts don't just interpret your life. They construct it. They build filters that shape your reactions, behaviors and patterns. Eventually, your brain stops looking for truth and starts looking for what it expects. And here's the danger. You begin to repeat the same experiences and call it fate. You start thinking life just happens to you, when in reality, you're living out the story your mind has rehearsed over and over. But here's where things shift. If your beliefs can distort your vision, they can also expand. If you change what you expect to see, you give your mind permission to find what was always there but ignored. Speak new beliefs into your internal space. Say, I discover solutions with ease, and suddenly problems look different. Say, I attract authentic connections, and you'll stop tolerating toxic ones. This isn't fantasy, it's neuroscience. Your brain will begin prioritizing experiences that confirm your new self-image. That's why transformation doesn't begin with external change. It begins with internal perspective. You're not stuck because of your environment. You're stuck because of how you're filtering it. Your reality isn't fixed. It's being edited by you. The way to break through isn't to shut your eyes tighter. It's to open your mind wider. This knowledge isn't new. It's simply rarely spoken about. Because real power lies not in observing the world, but in interpreting it consciously. To see something new, you must speak in new ways. You must think from a higher mental altitude, not for trendiness, but because your inner world determines what your outer world can hold. Your internal beliefs create a blueprint, and life builds itself around that template. Once you understand this, you stop being passive. You become a conscious director. You notice what others ignore, because your lens has been reprogrammed to detect what aligns with your evolving narrative. So when you look at your life next, understand that what you perceive isn't just what exists. It's what you've been conditioned to find. Shift the lens, and the scenery changes with it. Emotions aren't just internal weather. They are frequencies, vibrational signals that either cloud or clarify your view. Your inner perception is tuned by what you feel, and what you feel becomes the filter through which you observe everything. When anger takes over, your perspective shrinks. You don't see paths or possibilities. You see opposition, threats, injustice. The entire world narrows into a single frame. Vision collapses into reaction. That's not a flaw. That's how emotional energy works. It concentrates your focus, but if left unchecked, it distorts it. Fear does something similar. It hijacks your imagination and paints worst-case scenarios in high definition. You start interpreting every silence as rejection. Every delay is doom. You're no longer engaging with reality. You're engaging with projections, shadows cast by your internal unease. These emotions, when unmanaged, act like static on the signal. They cloud, confuse, and confine. But just as negative emotions can compress your perception, elevated emotions can refine it. Gratitude is more than a polite feeling. It's a frequency upgrade. When you embody gratitude, your field of awareness widens. You notice the small details, the opportunities hidden in plain sight, the beauty that was always there but overlooked. Clarity flows from appreciation. When you recognize what's already working, your brain becomes better at finding more that aligns with that resonance. It's like adjusting a lens from blurry to focused. Conviction has a similar effect. When you operate from deep purpose, a still confidence emerges. It doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you no longer need certainty to move. You sense which path is yours, even when it looks impossible to others. That's not ego. That's alignment. When you're aligned, you don't chase direction. Direction reveals itself. You begin to operate from inner knowing instead of outer approval. Imagination is another high frequency. Most think it's child's play, but imagination is a tool of transformation. It's not fantasy, it's foresight. When you visualize something vividly, your brain and body begin preparing for that reality, even if it hasn't physically arrived. Elite athletes use it. Visionary leaders use it. Creators and inventors live by it. Not because they're avoiding reality, but because they're building the next one. Imagination bypasses the limitations of the now and connects you to the potential of the not yet. It lets you preview possible futures and choose which one to step toward. When you imagine deeply, you're not wasting time, you're designing timelines. But here's what happens. The clearer your internal vision becomes, the more resistance you may face from others and from within, because vision threatens the status quo. Your clarity can unsettle those who are still hiding in confusion. People may call you naive, unrealistic, dreamy. That's okay. That's part of the path. Remember, every revolutionary idea was once considered absurd. The airplane, the internet, space travel, they all started as visions seen by one, doubted by many. What separates dreamers from builders is faith. The belief that the vision inside is more trustworthy than the conditions outside. And that's what makes inner sight sacred. Not because it guarantees ease, but because it insists on authenticity. The challenge isn't in seeing new possibilities. The challenge is in trusting them enough to act. When you believe your inner preview is valid even when no one else sees it, start bending reality toward it. And this isn't mysticism, it's mechanism. The brain rewires according to attention and repetition. The more you feed a thought with emotional energy and focus, the more your brain makes space for it. It becomes part of your decision-making, part of your awareness, part of your world. But imagination, if neglected, fades. If dismissed, it dies. Not because it wasn't real, but because it wasn't protected. That's why your inner vision must be guarded, nourished, cultivated like sacred ground. If you ignore it, suppress it, or trade it for external opinions, you don't just lose a dream, you lose your compass. So when you find yourself daydreaming, shut it down. Ask, what is this showing me? What lights up when I think this thought? That's your soul speaking. That's the whisper of your deeper self saying, this is the path. Imagination isn't random, it's revelatory, and when paired with action, it becomes your map. But the gateway to vision isn't comfort, it's discomfort. And here's where most people retreat. Because pain, fear, and uncertainty feel like signs to stop. But often, they're signals to go deeper. The doorway to your next level is rarely wrapped in ease. It's disguised as resistance, rejection, risk. These aren't barriers, they're invitations. Every time you lean into discomfort, instead of pulling back, something sharpens inside you. A clarity forms that wasn't accessible from safety. Because discomfort is a mirror, reflects the truth you've been avoiding. In your comfort zone, things become blurry. Patterns go unnoticed. Life becomes automatic. But when discomfort strikes, your senses reawaken. Your mind opens. You begin to really feel the layers you've numbed. You see your habits, your fears, your inherited stories. And once you see them, you can shift them. That's why those with the strongest inner vision are often those who faced the most pain, not because they were punished, but because they said yes to the process. They walked into uncertainty when it would have been easier to avoid. They chose growth over approval. They confronted fear, failure, and doubt and came through with wisdom. Growth requires friction, and friction reveals form. So stop asking life to get easier. Ask instead, what is this tension showing me? That question is the beginning of real sight. Because your soul didn't come here to stay safe. It came here to awaken. The power you seek doesn't show up in still waters. It rises in storms, in brave decisions, in awkward conversations, in moments where your body shakes but your spirit says, do it anyway. Every courageous act sharpens your vision. Every bold step activates a deeper layer of sight. Not just the kind that looks, but the kind that knows. And still, many want revelation without risk, clarity without change, vision without movement. But life doesn't honor that deal. The unseen won't become visible until you move toward it. And when you do, you'll find that discomfort wasn't your enemy, was your evolution. The challenge was never blocking you. It was inviting you to meet the next version of yourself. So the next time fear rises and your comfort begs you to stay still, remember, what you fear is not the end, it's the entrance. Step through, because behind that fear is the you that's been waiting to be born. The clearer version, the bolder version, the one who doesn't flinch when the world shakes, the one who leads when others wait. To see beyond the obvious, you must release the need to stay plugged in to everything around you, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Not because the world is bad, but because it's loud. Your inner sight is subtle. It won't compete with constant stimulation. You can't awaken higher perception while you're immersed in distraction. You must disconnect, so you can reconnect. You can't hear your inner compass when you're endlessly checking how others are living. When your worth is tied to likes, metrics, applause, you lose the thread of your own path. You drift from your direction, hypnotized by everyone else's. But vision isn't born in comparison. It's birthed in solitude. And solitude doesn't mean loneliness. It means space, separation, a return to self, not isolation from humanity, but freedom from illusion. The illusion that you need to be accepted to be enough. The illusion that your value comes from visibility. The illusion that your truth must match the world's preferences. The path to true vision often requires detachment, not as retreat, but as realignment. You must be willing to step back from the herd, not because you think you're better, but because you know there's something deeper calling you forward. Detach not from people but from performance. Stop performing your life. Start perceiving it. Turn your gaze inward. Begin watching yourself the way you've been watching everyone else. What thoughts constantly arise? What triggers you? What do you chase, and why? Ask yourself, what have I been conditioned to want? Whose story have I been living? And who would I be without that script? These are the forbidden questions, the kind that break patterns and birth clarity, the kind that awaken not the eyes in your head, but the eyes in your spirit. And when you unplug from the noise, something unexpected happens. Subtle signals rise to the surface. Intuition speaks more clearly. Patterns become visible. You feel a direction not logical, but certain. This is inner vision, not powered by effort, but by alignment. Not fueled by data, but by knowing. The world may not understand. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're distant. But what they won't see is that you've simply stopped playing the game. You're no longer measuring your life by someone else's scoreboard. While they scroll, you listen. While they chase content, you cultivate clarity. While they perform, you perceive. And in that shift, you access a new level of spiritual intelligence. Detachment isn't disconnection. It's elevation. It's learning how to be in the world without letting it own you. It's being present without being possessed. When you detach, you regain vision. When you regain vision, you reclaim authority over your thoughts, over your time, over your energy. You stop chasing validation. You start following truth. And the world once seen from that new vantage point loses its power to control you. It becomes your canvas, not your cage. So be still, unplug, pull back. Because when you stop looking outward for affirmation, you begin seeing inward for alignment. And from alignment, clarity rises, quiet, precise, profound. There are signs all around you, not in neon, not in spectacle, but in repetition. Patterns are not coincidences. They are echoes of meaning, soft signals repeating until you're ready to listen. Life doesn't move randomly. It moves rhythmically. Cycles, seasons, recurrences. The spiritually aware don't just experience life, they interpret it. Think about it. How many times have the same types of relationships, struggles, or emotions returned to you? Different people, different places, but the same theme. Those aren't failures, they're feedback. They're showing you something unfinished, something unseen, a message still waiting to be received. If you keep encountering the same dynamic, that's not bad luck. That's a loop. And until it's acknowledged, it will replay. You change cities, but the loneliness remains. You switch careers, but the doubt returns. You find new friends, but the same wound reopens. Why? Because the outer change can't override an unhealed pattern. You're not stuck because life is broken. You're stuck because the cycle is unbroken, and cycles don't shatter by accident. They shatter by awareness. So ask, what keeps coming back into my life? What story keeps repeating itself through different characters? What emotion circles back every few years like a season I forgot to prepare for? These aren't punishments, they're preparations. They're chances to become conscious where you were previously unaware. And here's the gift. The moment you recognize the pattern, you gain power over it. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer repeat, you rewrite. You don't need psychic abilities to know your future. Just look at your past, your emotional patterns, your behaviors, your cycles. Follow the thread, and you'll see where it's all leading. But when you see the pattern, when you name it, when you stop pretending not to notice it, that's when things change. You don't need to wait for rock bottom. You just need to pay attention. Life is always speaking, gently at first, then louder, until finally, it shakes you. Not to break you, but to wake you. And when you finally listen, when you decode the signal, when you stop blaming and start observing, you become free. Free not just to end the loop, but to begin a new rhythm. Because patterns aren't just remnants of who you were, they're blueprints for who you can become. Every revelation you've been waiting for is already embedded in your life, story disguised as repetition. And once you see it, once you honor it, once you step through it with conscious choice, the next chapter reveals itself. But the new cannot arrive while the old remains unacknowledged. This is the law of spiritual sight. You will continue to attract the same lessons until you elevate your perception, until you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this showing me? When you ask the right question, the pattern reveals its purpose. And then, vision sharpens not by force, but by awareness. This is where real transformation begins, not in grand epiphanies, but in quiet noticing. You spot the recurring thought, the emotional trigger, the belief beneath the habit. And in that noticing, you choose differently. That's the beginning of liberation. Most people think they need a sign, but life has already given you one. Multiple. You've just been trained not to trust them unless they come with proof. But inner vision doesn't operate on proof. It operates on pattern, intuition, insight, feeling. You were never meant to blindly repeat life. You were meant to refine it, to evolve beyond the loop. You must become the witness, the one who doesn't just live through patterns but who learns from them. And then, a new rhythm begins. One you write, one you choose. One that aligns with who you truly are, not who you've been conditioned to be. So pause, look again. What's been repeating? What are you pretending not to notice? Because what you ignore today will echo louder tomorrow. But what you acknowledge, what you face, what you truly see, that has the power to dissolve, to shift, to transform. Your future doesn't need to be predicted. It needs to be designed. And that starts with seeing the patterns for what they are. Invitations. Invitations to rise. True vision doesn't wait for evidence. It precedes it. It leads. And this is where most get stuck. They think they need proof to believe, results to act, applause to move forward. But inner vision operates in reverse. It requires belief first, then action, then manifestation. This is the mark of those who lead, who pioneer, who break new ground. They don't wait to see it with their eyes. They trust what they've seen with their spirit. This trust isn't blind. It's bold. It's not irrational. It's rooted in something deeper than logic, something the external world rarely understands. Because the world is built on measurements, metrics, tangible progress. It wants you to show results before it offers support. But visionaries don't operate that way. They know, if I can sense it, I can shape it. Vision is an inner blueprint, and the moment you choose to walk toward it despite no signs, no validation, no visible reward, you begin bending reality toward what's unseen. This is the essence of creation, not waiting, not wishing, walking. When you act before the world agrees, the world responds in surprising ways. Resources emerge, people show up, opportunities align. Not because you forced them, but because your energy called them in. Inner clarity generates outer change, not instantly, but inevitably. But here's the trap. The moment you begin to doubt, waiting for others to validate what only you can see, you lose connection. Not because the vision failed, but because you surrendered it to people who were never meant to hold it. Your vision is your responsibility. It's not a group project. Protect it like a sacred flame. Speak at heaven if no one claps. Write at heaven if no one reads. Build at heaven if no one notices. Because the vision isn't about their reaction. It's about your evolution. It exists to shape you first, before it ever reshapes the world. Vision isn't meant to feel comfortable. It's supposed to stretch you, pull you, lead you, transform you. That's its purpose, not just to show you the future, but to prepare you for it. And if you ever wonder if it's real, just look around. Everything you now take for granted, your technology, your career, your relationships, all started as a thought, an image, an inner glimpse. What once was invisible is now undeniable. So, the question is, what invisible possibility are you being called to believe now, even though there's no external sign? Because that's the beginning of inner mastery, faith, not as wishful thinking, but as a form of sight. Faith is the eye of the soul. It doesn't demand evidence, it produces it. The outer world eventually matches what the inner world dares to hold. The world will always say, be realistic, wait, play it safe. But that's not where transformation happens. And it's certainly not where destiny is born. The people who changed the world weren't waiting for confirmation. They were the confirmation. They didn't wait for conditions to be right. They decided to move regardless of the conditions. And here's the deeper truth. Your life has already been sending you signals, but not in dramatic displays or burning bushes, in patterns, in whispers, in echoes that repeat through time and space. Same challenges, same crossroads, same intuition nudges. These are not mistakes. These are sacred patterns, pointing you toward your purpose. Look again. The signs have always been there, but most people stay blind, not because the message isn't clear, but because they don't trust themselves to interpret it. Vision doesn't just mean seeing something new outside. It means understanding what's been trying to reach you from within. So ask yourself, what vision have I been ignoring because no one else can see it? What dream have I delayed because I couldn't find the data to support it? What inner call have I silenced waiting for permission? Most people miss their calling not because it's hidden, but because it's quiet. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and they're too distracted to hear. Real clarity often comes in silence, in stillness, in solitude. It arrives in moments when the noise fades and your spirit speaks. And once it does, your job is not to explain it. Your job is to honor it, to trust it, to walk with it, even when the path is foggy, even when the next step feels invisible. Because the deeper life requires movement without maps, courage without certainty, faith without forecast. And that's the challenge. Most want to know how it will work before they begin. But vision doesn't show you the whole staircase. It only reveals the first step. And you take that step, not with sight, but with trust. What has life been repeating for you? Not to punish, but to prepare. What emotion, scenario, or story keeps showing up? What subtle direction keeps whispering in your dreams? What desire continues knocking, even though you keep closing the door? Those are not accidents. they're invitations. And when you finally answer, when you finally move, everything begins to change. Because that movement activates alignment, and alignment opens the path. Vision, when honored, becomes a force. Not just in your mind, but in your world. Not just in your future, but in your present. It shifts how you see, how you speak, how you show up. And that shift doesn't wait for circumstances to catch up. It creates the circumstances. Once you understand this, you stop waiting. You stop hesitating. You stop needing guarantees. You realize, I don't have to be certain of the outcome. I just have to be faithful to the insight. You don't need more information. You need activation. And activation begins with obedience. When your spirit speaks, listen. When your vision stirs, move. When your intuition burns, act. Even if no one understands. Even if the timing feels wrong. Even if your knees shake. Because the truth is, most will never see what you see. And they're not supposed to. It wasn't given to them. It was given to you. Inner vision isn't a suggestion. It's a calling. And once it shows itself, it comes with a responsibility. When your soul reveals a glimpse of what's possible, it isn't asking you to consider. It's asking you to honor it. Insight alone is not transformation. Seeing the path is only the beginning. Walking it is what turns the invisible into reality. That's where most people stop, not at the lack of vision, but at the lack of obedience to that vision. Obedience doesn't mean submission in a weak sense. It means loyalty to your inner truth. It means living in alignment with what you know, even when your fear tries to negotiate a different route. As soon as you feel that internal pull toward change, toward purpose, toward growth, hesitation becomes dangerous, because hesitation makes room for doubt. Doubt feeds fear, and fear delays your destiny. That's why vision without obedience is wasted potential. It becomes an echo of what could have been. It sits there, unrealized, not because it wasn't powerful, but because it wasn't pursued. The world won't always understand this path. It won't always applaud your decision to follow something invisible. That's okay. This journey isn't meant to be validated by the outside. It's meant to be lived from the inside. Your vision may ask you to step into places that are unfamiliar, to leave behind comfort, to walk away from relationships or roles that no longer align. It may ask you to speak truths that rattle the room, or to stay silent when noise surrounds you. Obedience to inner vision is rarely convenient. It often looks like contradiction from the outside. People may say you're being irresponsible, that you've changed, that you're walking away from stability. But here's the truth. Stability without alignment is a cage, and growth often feels like chaos before it feels like peace. The path your spirit lays before you doesn't always come with instructions. It asks for faith, it asks for courage, and it asks for movement, because movement signals belief. When you walk toward something without proof, you prove to yourself that you trust your own inner compass more than the world's map. Every revolutionary story you've ever heard, every creator, leader, change maker, wasn't applauded at the start. They were questioned, ridiculed, ignored. But they didn't need consensus. They had clarity. And clarity, when acted upon, becomes creation. This is how inner vision works. It's a sacred agreement between you and your higher self. A commitment that says, when I see it, I'll move toward it. Even if it's hard, even if no one else joins me. It's in this obedience that momentum builds. Every step taken in faith generates energy. The invisible becomes magnetic. The path begins to clear, not because the world changed, but because you did. Obedience isn't a one-time event. It's a lifestyle, a series of consistent choices that say, I will not abandon what I've seen just because it hasn't happened yet. And yes, you will be tested. There will be moments when the vision feels distant, when nothing external seems to match the inner pull, when the work gets heavy, when the silence gets loud. but that's part of the process. Every vision comes with resistance. Every path includes valleys, but those valleys aren't punishment, they're preparation. They deepen your roots. They stretch your faith. They fortify your resolve. The real question isn't, will the vision come to life? It's, will you keep walking toward it, even when the terrain gets rough? The ones who transform their lives, and the lives of others, aren't the ones who never doubt. They're the ones who act in spite of doubt, who keep moving when motivation fades, who remember the why when the how isn't clear. This is the spiritual discipline of vision. Not flashy, not glamorous, but sacred, quiet, relentless. Because when you act in harmony with what you've seen within, life reorganizes around that intention. People, opportunities, resources, they begin to show up. Not all at once, but in rhythm with your faith. This is not superstition, it's spiritual law. Energy follows attention, and your attention, when directed by vision, creates a gravitational pull. But none of that can activate until you obey, until you take the step, speak the word, make the change, and understand. Obedience is not about knowing every detail. It's about trusting the direction. If you wait until you have it all figured out, you'll wait forever. The map unfolds as you walk, and with each step, your sight sharpens. The truth is, obedience often looks like risk, like leaving the familiar, like betting on a dream no one else can see. But it's also where your power lives. You can't grow into the person your vision requires by standing still. Every challenge you face while walking forward is training. Every decision is a layer of becoming. Every sacrifice is a seed. You are not here to remain comfortable. You are here to remember who you are, to reclaim your design, to live as someone, led not just by logic but by a higher intelligence. That intelligence lives in your spirit, and your spirit speaks in vision. So when it calls, answer, even if your voice trembles, even if the path is steep, even if you're the only one walking it, because what begins in silence must be brought into sound. What begins in seeing must be brought into form, and form doesn't arrive by thinking, it arrives by choosing. Again and again, you may stumble, you may falter, but if you keep walking, the vision will walk with you. It will grow with you. It will mature through you, and one day, what once felt impossible will feel inevitable. Not because the world finally caught up, but because you kept going when it did single quotes. So honor what you see, trust what you feel. Move when your soul says move, because vision without obedience is imagination. Vision with obedience becomes destiny. You don't have to search the world for your inner vision. You don't have to earn it, chase it, or unlock it through something external, because it was never out there. It's been within you since the beginning, quiet, constant, waiting. Vision is not some distant treasure buried under layers of achievement. It's a core part of your being, older than your name, deeper than your thoughts. From your very first breath, you were already connected to the unseen, to the sacred intelligence that guides you beyond logic. But life noise, fast, loud, tries to bury that connection. From an early age, you were taught to trade intuition for instruction, daydreams for duties, knowing for compliance. You were taught to doubt your feelings, second-guess your insights, and only trust what could be proven or praised. Slowly, the volume of the outer world drowned out the whisper of your soul. Layers of fear, doubt, expectation, and distraction settled over the light inside you, not to destroy it, but to dim it just enough for you to forget. But forgetting is not the same as losing. Your vision didn't vanish. It went dormant. It paused, patiently, waiting for you to remember. And that remembering doesn't require new skills or fancy teachings. It requires unlearning, stripping back the layers, removing the filters, returning to the truth you already carry. You've always had this gift, the ability to perceive beyond what's seen, to feel what others miss, to hear what isn't said. It's not rare, it's human, but it only activates when you choose to tune in. When you silence the mental noise and come back to stillness, your inner compass reawakens. You begin to see patterns in what once felt like chaos. You find clarity in places you used to avoid. You feel guidance not from others but from your own center. This reconnection changes everything. It alters how you walk through life. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop chasing and begin choosing. And the world, once foggy, starts to reveal a deeper structure. You no longer wait for signs. You realize you are the sign. The world has conditioned you to seek truth from the outside, from books, from experts, from titles and trends. But the most powerful knowledge has always come from within, from that subtle pulse of knowing that doesn't shout, but never lies. This inner voice is your greatest ally, not because it has all the answers, but because it always points you toward what's real. Real alignment, real direction, real purpose. Your job isn't to force vision, it's to remove what blocks it, to clear away the clutter, to get honest about the distractions you've allowed in habits, relationships, patterns that pull you out of sync, because when the distractions fall away, your truth becomes unmistakable. You begin to see not only the world but yourself with new clarity. You see who you've been, who you've pretended to be, and who you're truly becoming. You remember what lights you up not for performance, but for purpose. You remember what hurts not as punishment, but as guidance. You remember what you were born to build, create, and live not because someone said so, but because it's written into the fabric of your being. This is the sacred art of seeing again. You stop confusing movement with progress. You stop mistaking applause for alignment. You stop outsourcing your worth, and you begin quietly, confidently to walk your own path. One step at a time, one yes at a time, one act of obedience at a time. And here's the miracle. The more you walk in vision, the more life opens in response. New doors appear, resources gather, people align, not because you chased them, but because you became the version of you that attracts them. Inner vision doesn't just predict the future, creates it, not from force, but from frequency, from the energy you carry, from the identity you choose. That's the secret. You don't get what you want. You get what you align with. So align with clarity, align with courage, align with the version of yourself that already lives the future you desire, not someday. Now, because every time you choose vision over comfort, intention over habit, truth over validation, you bring that version of you closer. And that version is powerful, present, unshakable. That version doesn't need to be seen to know their worth. They don't need to win the crowd to stay the course. They are driven not by pressure, but by purpose. That version lives through vision, and yes, the world may still try to pull you off path. It will offer shortcuts, distractions, easier options, but once you've seen, you cannot unsee. Once you've felt your alignment, everything else feels off. You'll begin to notice when something drains your energy, clouds your insight, distorts your peace. You'll stop tolerating noise in any form because it interferes with what matters most, your connection to the unseen. And as that connection strengthens, your life transforms not suddenly, but steadily, not dramatically, but deeply. You no longer need to be rescued. You remember, you were never lost. You were only distant from yourself. Now you return to truth, to stillness, to clarity, to vision, and you walk not rushed, not desperate, not searching, rooted, aligned, awake. From this place, you lead, not with control, but with presence. Not by being the loudest, but by being the clearest. Not with certainty about outcomes, but with conviction in the journey. This is the essence of spiritual sight, not mystical, not reserved for the few, but available to all who dare to listen. So listen to the tug in your chest, the pull that defies logic, the desire that won't go away, the idea that feels too big, the dream you keep circling back to. The knowing that says, there's more? That's your soul speaking. That's vision calling. That's the invitation. Answer it. Not with perfection, but with presence. Not with control, but with commitment and step. Into your next chapter. Into your true self. Into the path only you were born to walk. Because you are not here by accident. You are not disconnected from the mystery. You are the mystery made visible. You are not separate from vision. You are the vision made real. And once you remember that, there's nothing you can't build, become, or believe. So stand in that truth. Move from that truth. And live not just by sight, but by vision.